This is TWiT.
So let's get to the perspective. And I think the perspective today, this is Thursday, July 6th, is holy moly, we have another social media network to track. And seems like it's a forever rotating door of Twitter replacements. At least that's defined at this point, 2023 for me. It's like, where are we going here? Are we just sticking with Twitter? Are we going to any of these number of different places? And now we have one more. It's called Threads, launched by this scrappy upstart you've never heard of, Meta, via Instagram. So that might be a little confusing, but we'll talk about that. Joining me to talk all about this is Richard Lawler from The Verge. Welcome back, Richard. It's good to see you.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Glad to be back.
Yeah, and I know you've been pretty busy because I think initially Threads was going to, initially nobody knew about Threads, and then suddenly everybody knew about it and it was supposed to launch today, I think. And then very suddenly they said, no, actually we'll launch it yesterday, Wednesday at like 4 p.m. So things have just been kind of scrambling and moving fast. How's it going for you covering this fast moving story?
Tiring. Yesterday became a much longer day very suddenly. Yes, I at the beginning of the day, I said, okay, on Thursday, we'll be ready at 10 a.m. There'll be a new social network launching. We'll be all over it. And then suddenly, right before 7, the countdowns changed and it said 3 hours. I was like, that's not right. It must be, it must be a bug. It was not a bug. That was when Threads launched in the App Store and in Google Play. You can also view the post kind of on the web, but you can't really use the site there.
Yeah.
But yes, it is kind of built upon the bones of this small social media site you may have heard of, Instagram, with about 2 billion users, which is kind of an advantage when you're starting a new social network.
Yeah. And like initially, in order to even get to it, you had to go into Instagram, go into the search, type in Threads, and it opened up a little Easter egg button that you'd click and you'd be able to join through that. Now I think you can just go to the app stores and find the app and install it and everything. My question, though, is this like fast track, suddenly Threads is here and moved up, from their initial plan strategy that they did, if it is a strategy. Does this have anything to do in your mind with the rate limiting kind of stuff that was happening this weekend? Like I imagine when you're launching a new social network to compete with something like Twitter, it works in your favor to have something very, very impactful and perhaps negative happening to that platform that you're trying to replace. And that did happen over the weekend. What's your thoughts there?
That has been the last few days for Twitter, but really Twitter has been in chaos for at least the last 6 months, if not its entire history. I think if you, depending on who you speak to, that has just been the state of things for Twitter. So I think that they were not specifically responding as much to the rate limiting and the controversy over the weekend, but just the overall just unease and everything that's been happening with Twitter over those last few months. It was a question that I think I asked myself, and I think a lot of other people asked, sort of as soon as Elon Musk took over Twitter, they started laying people off. It was evident that things would change, but we weren't sure exactly how. I said to myself, if anyone can launch a site that is like Twitter, that can compete with Twitter, it seems like Meta could do it. They have obviously the engineering staff. They have the background. They have the built-in user base. They have everything that you need. They just have never done it. And eventually someone said, you know what, why don't we try it?
Yeah, indeed. Now you've had, as I have, I've messed around with Threads. You've had some time to mess around with it very suddenly. How would you describe your experience so far? Like what is it about Threads that that maybe sets it apart from something like Twitter or even some of the other Twitter replacements or different avenues like Mastodon and Blue Sky? I mean, there's so many of them now. They're all very similar, but different in their own unique ways. How would you categorize Threads in that landscape?
Threads is at the same time extremely familiar. It's basically just like Twitter. If you've used Twitter, same buttons, very same kind of outlook, but it's also very different, especially for something that's starting because there's so many people on it. It's everyone from Instagram. You press a button and you can follow everyone you follow on Instagram on Threads. And the app is, I think, very well designed kind of at the beginning, but it does not have a lot of features. You can repost things, you can quote post, but you don't have things like post editing. The search is very bare bones. There's no real like hashtags. There's so many features. Notifications is a thing that probably most people don't use as much as I do, but it doesn't really have those. So like follow people and get notifications when they post. So it's not necessarily ready to entirely replace Twitter, but you can see the very basics of what it has. And it has all of those. And most importantly, it has people. That's the thing that I think every other platform that is trying to take over for Twitter doesn't have. You look at it and you start to think who is not on there. But like I go on Threads and I see my colleagues posting on there. I see other people in the industry. I see Adrian Wojnarowski posting NBA trade news. So that's what I come to Twitter for. So if it has all that stuff, it has the content and the people, then that really is the main thing, and everything else can kind of come later.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned the notifications, not having notifications. I mean, it does have notifications. It doesn't have notifications like what you're pointing out. But I have to say, my notifications of like, so-and-so followed you, so-and-so liked you. Like, I mean, they come right out of the gate with that full activated, of course, as most apps these days do, trying to make sure that you get maximum integration. So a little pro tip, it probably behooves you to go into the settings and make some changes. Otherwise, you will be notified about everything that's happening as far as follower account and all that. But you won't be notified when a particular account is posting something that you want to be notified about. I'm sure all of these things coming at some point. And obviously, Threads kind of approaching this from a very different perspective than something like Blue Sky. I would say in all of these apps, Blue Sky is the one that I've had the least like interaction with yet. And part of that is because, it's more of like a closed invite system by comparison. Threads really seems to open things up. I don't know. I guess any of these services when they first launched seem pretty positive right out of the gate. But part of me feels like I'm seeing more positivity about this than I've seen about the other ones. Is that your assessment? Are people like generally pretty jazzed about this out of the gate?
I think that's mostly consistent with what I've seen, that people have been very positive because it feels like something that can actually work. I use Mastodon. I use Blue Sky. Those have their own communities and they have their own kind of vibe, but they also feel very bootstrapped, very startup. You're kind of always waiting to see if it's going to go down or if it's going to not be able to handle the flood of users when Twitter does something strange. And while Threads has been slightly unstable at times over these last, I don't know what, nearly 20 hours that it's existed.
24 hours.
You can understand that they would have some strain, but that they can survive millions or even billions of people using it because of who's running it. That the company will exist tomorrow. And so that gives you something. I think that's part of why people have responded so positively, even if they don't normally feel that way about Mark Zuckerberg. But if your choice is Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook versus what you've seen happen with Twitter, I think that changes the equation. And also kind of on the media side, one of the things that we talk about when you talk about things that Threads doesn't have, it doesn't have replacement for TweetDeck, which a lot of media people use and a lot of normal people probably don't. But over the weekend, Twitter broke TweetDeck. They broke the version of TweetDeck that everyone in the media likes to use, replaced it with another one that's worse, and said that you'll have to pay for it. So I think there are a lot of people who are very loud and very online who are looking for something new right now.
Yeah, I want to touch on something that you just mentioned. This kind of the personality drama behind the scenes, right? You've got Elon Musk and his involvement with Twitter over the last year. Here we've got Mark Zuckerberg, who is behind Meta, and I would say the air quotes evil social media person, of a couple of years ago, like primarily in the spotlight. Everybody was like, and I can throw myself into that ring as well, kind of anti-Zuck, felt yucky using Facebook products. Like it just didn't feel good. And then things have shifted around and, now you've got Zuckerberg maybe taking a step out of that spotlight, Musk coming in to fill the role. And I think what really struck me about this is, and I've talked about it actually on Threads, I had a post about this, that Zuck used to be the person that everybody hated, so they moved away from Facebook. Then Musk becomes the person everybody hates, so they move away from Twitter back to Facebook, essentially. Meta, Instagram company, they're back on Threads. And I'm just wondering your opinion on this. Do people actually really care? Are we just saying that we care, but then at the end of the day, like our desire to have a platform to share on is so strong, or we've just kind of given up? Like, I'm trying to figure it out because I feel like I see a lot of people, and I include myself, kind of conflicted where this is concerned. It's like, I hate this, but I want this. What do you think?
I think it's the struggle that all of us have. We all have questions and concerns about how these platforms are run. what their priorities are, what the moderation is like, what they're really pushing, what they're doing to us and to others around us, and kind of the way that we connect to people. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we would like to be where the people are. If there's a party going on, you want to be in it. And if you hear that everyone's joining threads, then, well, you got to click the button and create an account and kind of figure out everything else later. And we know exactly how bad this can be in the end. We've seen it. We've seen it with Meta. We've seen it with Mark Zuckerberg. But yes, we will fall for it again and again and again. Apparently, I don't have a better explanation, unfortunately.
And I don't know that there is really an explanation other than to point it out for what it is. We just continue to jump, even when we say we're not going to. I'm pointing at myself when I say that. Final question is ActivityPub. I know there are plans to kind of integrate threads with ActivityPub. What do we know as far as specifics around how or when, or is that just kind of mentioned in passing and we'll see it somewhere down the line, but not a huge priority right now?
Right now, we really haven't heard anything as far as a timeline. And as it's launching, it does not support ActivityPub. It doesn't integrate with these decentralized services. But from the leadership to, I think, kind of on down with the people making it, I think there is a focus on integrating it with ActivityPub. They've talked about it internally. They've talked about it externally, how much they want to do this. And I think it's something that Meta and Instagram would like to do. They have self-interest. They have reasons to want to do this themselves so that they can say, hey, maybe we banned these people for this reason, but they have another place to go. You can't just say that because we kicked them off, they have no access. They can go to another server and still connect with people and do whatever they want. And that removes some of the burden from them. And I think that, you mentioned Blue Sky earlier. That's a major issue for Blue Sky, is that Blue Sky wants to create a system where they don't necessarily have to be the moderators. You can pick whatever type of moderation you have. And this is sort of a way for Meta and Instagram to get access to that.
Interesting. Well, we are at the beginning of the Grand Threads experience, the experiment from the folks at Meta and Instagram, and you're following it closely. So I really appreciate you taking out some time to join us today. Richard Lawler, of course, writes for The Verge at theverge.com. Richard, what's your Threads handle if people want to find you there?
It is Richard Lawler, first and last. Unfortunately, not RJCC. Someone got that.
Oh,
I'm still mad.
Well, it's bound to happen. I'm halfways Jason Howell, and on the other ways that I can't get it, that Jason Howell. So, you take what you can get. Thank you so much, Richard. It's a pleasure, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. See you later.
All right. See you later.
Tech Break is brought to you by ACI Learning. IT skills are outdated in about 18 months. Stay ahead of the curve and future-proof your business competitiveness with customizable, entertaining training. Fill out the form at go.acilearning.com/twit for more information on a free 2-week training trial for your team.